Good morning, guys. Got another video coming at you today. We've got a couple cars we're going to be dyno tuning. So we got the first one on the dyno. It's 2012, right?
08.
08. Oh, way off. It's a little early. I haven't had my morning breakfast yet, so I'm a little off. But 2008 STI. It's got an IAG short block, FP green turbo, Cobb 1050X injectors, ETS top mount, and basically all the other supporting mods we need to make some good power. So we're going to be doing pump gas today. We were trying to talk this guy into E85, but he doesn't want to do it. So I'm a little bummed about that, but we're still going to give him some good numbers because he wants to get as much as he can out on pump gas. So I'm going to go ahead and get the laptop hooked up, start doing some base map on it, and then we're going to get started. Got a little audience over here. Got the boys watching. All right. I actually work with these guys at work, so it's a pretty cool day. I'm going to show them a little bit of what I do here after work. You guys are going to get a little taste of the tuning life. So, all right, well, let's make some noise. Let's get started. issue I'm having is I've got the rev limiter set. I raised it a little bit to like 7,200 because I thought I was initially hitting the rev limiter on the end of the pull because it felt like it was cutting. But looking at the logs, every time I get above like 65 to 6,700, it hits a wall. And it sounds like a limiter, but it's not. It's actually, the ECU's kind of freaking out for a second, it seems like. So I'm looking at everything, trying to figure it out, and my timing's conservative, so I'm looking at knock per cylinder and also roughness right now. And I've got
a little louder.
I've got no roughness. And this is really odd. I don't know if I have a coil pack that's going out, but usually I would have cylinder roughness with that. This seems like the same RPM every time. It just hits a wall at about 6,700 RPM. You can see right here. And it's got a lot of feedback knock right there, which it shouldn't. So I'm only running 13 degrees of timing. I'm trying to run 15, but I'm pulling down to 13. I'm only at, everything else is safe. So 18 to 19 PSI. You should not be pulling timing right there. Air fuel ratio is nice and rich actually. It's like 11.3, 11.4. Interesting. The car does have 184,000 miles on it, so I'm wondering if these are the original coil packs and the coil packs are just weak.
But wouldn't it be rough at any RPM though?
No, because usually with coil packs, when you put more stress on them and you make them burn more fuel and more boost goes in the cylinder, usually that's what aggravates them and gets them worse because, or makes them show up because they can't handle the load, so they're a little bit weak. And usually it doesn't show up till you start pushing them hard. So, unless they're completely bad, which they are. They're just weak. I need to go talk to them and see what plugs are in it, what gaps in there, and see if the coils are original.
You want me to hit the fans?
Yeah, let's kill the fans. So we're having issues. It's breaking up. Like if you hear it, when it gets to like 6,500, it starts popping.
I heard that.
And it's not supposed to do that. I thought it was the rev limiter at first, so I raised the rev limiter a little bit, and it still was way before the rev limiter. So I was looking at the logs, and I see a lot of feedback knock right in that area too. It kind of seems like as soon as it gets up there, it just kind of freaks out.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, are the coils the original?
I think so. They're
Because
original.
there are 184,000 on them then.
Yeah.
So
You
the
didn't want to
coil
upgrade
packs
them.
are probably weak. Because it seems like sparks starting to blow out right up there. It doesn't seem like it's like a crank trigger issue or anything because the RPM is reading stable.
Yeah.
Usually if we have like a crank sprocket or something like we had on the last build I did, it'll hit like a certain RPM and then the RPM will start twitching and freaking out. This one's solid, but it just hits a wall.
Yeah.
And so if you look at the dyno graph, you can actually see it. It's weird. So you can see the power graph is going up good, and then right there, I'm not letting off. I'm still wide open.
And
it just literally loses everything. So it's weird because usually you'll have like one coil or two drop off, and you'll get kind of a pap, and you'll see it in the graph.
Yeah.
This one is almost like they all let go at the same time, and spark's gone for a second, and just literally, it's almost like a rev limiter. That's the weird thing, you know what I mean?
No, I heard it.
And but yeah, it's making great. It just won't go past 6,500. Like it just hits a brick wall. So the other issue I'm having is I'm getting a really nasty fuel stutter. You got stock rails in the car.
Yep. Stock rails. I told them.
Yeah, stock rails with the bigger injectors and pump on the 08 especially is the worst year for it. It creates fuel stutter. So you guys watching, fuel stutter is basically when the car at about 2,800 RPM, right in that area, it goes full lean, and there's nothing I can do to compensate for it because it's actually a mechanical issue with the fuel system. So these cars have they have a return fuel system, but the rails loop back on the factory rails, and it's not an ideal setup because what ends up happening is at 2,800 RPM, right when the injector duty cycle hits that sweet spot, the RPM hits that sweet spot, It's the perfect storm for what they call fuel stutter. And what it is the injectors are actually getting a water hammer effect, and they're getting air. So they go lean and right in there. But when you get past it, it goes away. And but it's a super weird phenomenon with these cars. So any STI, it only is 08 plus. Before 08, they had a different fuel rail setup. We didn't have these issues, and the WRXs don't have it because they have a different fuel rail. So definitely needs IAG fuel rails or some sort of billet top feed fuel rail to fix that. There's no way to tune around it. It really isn't. I've already dumped a ton of fuel in that one little spot to try to make it better, but it's still, the fuel corrections are over 25% right when I hit that spot. That's why if you'll hear me sometimes, when it starts going over the pool, it goes blah, 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 and then it goes past it, that's the fuel stutter. So I'm going to dump just a whole world of fuel right there to try to make it as good as I can for you guys, but until you change those rails, it's never going to go away.
No, it sounds good.
So he needs rails, looks like coils. What about the plugs? What's the story on those?
They're stock. They're new, but they're stock.
Are they gapped any lower? Or?
No, just normal gap.
So I would check the gap.
Okay.
I would bring the gap down to 24. On this setup is what I would run. They're probably at 30 plus right now if they're just out of the box. That'll help too, but the coil's the main issue. I mean,
yeah, no, they're old.
You can always hear it like the easy way to figure out if it's if fuel or spark when you have an issue like that is if you can hear it. If it goes pa 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 and it's rowdy like that, it's almost always ignition. If it all of a sudden just kind of bucks but doesn't really make the sound, it's usually fuel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a weird thing about these cars. Like fuel and spark, you can differentiate them quite a bit. So
that's what I said.
But yeah, so we're at about 20 psi right now. Air fuel ratio, like during the in boost, is perfect. It's 11.5, which is good. But yeah, this is as far as we can go with that issue.
No, it's perfect.
You fix the spark, it should pick up power. So I'm actually surprised it made that much with the spark issue. Usually cars that have weak coils don't make anywhere close to that. So
yeah, I think you'll be happy with that.
yeah. So all right, guys. Well, hopefully I gave you a little in depth there on some of these issues. But fuel stutter is a big thing with these cars. It's just it's a weird characteristic of them. We've run into this for years. So anybody reading out there, make sure you do fuel rails, and if you're going to do injectors and whatnot, and you should be good. So we're going to end this video on this car here. We're going to get on to the next car. We've got another car to do today. So I'm going to unload this, and that guy should be showing up here in a little bit, and then we're going to get on that one. So this car here, like, if you want 400 on pump, this car should do it. But we're still even kind of struggle busting to get there right now because we had some fuel system issues with it, like we talked about. Yeah. But it's an FP Black. That's the turbo I'm talking about. If it had a 6.2 on it, I could almost guarantee you would have did it without even blinking an eye, just because it's so much bigger compressor and more efficient setup. But this will do it. It's just it's harder to get there. You know? Like,
yeah.
When you stay with the stock location stuff, everything has to be just so much more dialed and perfect to get the numbers you want, because you're dealing with a very small frame turbo. You know, a lot of these turbos, like, these are custom made. These aren't made by Garrett or Precision or any of the big guys. This is, I mean, Force Performance is a big company. They're great. I love their turbos. But what they're doing is they're trying to cram that big wheel power into a small package, and it's tricky. And so it's challenging.
Yeah.
And they're one company that is very good at it, but at the end of the day, the Garretts and the Precisions and the bigger frame are always going to outflow that turbo. It's just there's only so much you can do with a small package like that. You know, this turbo is capable of some very, very good numbers, though. I mean, on the right setup, I've had it do 550 on the 85, and that was like, we were all in at like 34 plus psi.
Damn. Oh my god.
So it's possible, but you got to have everything perfect. So, you know, it's just when you want that number on pump gas, that's where it gets hard. Pump gas is hard. E85 is easy. we put the E85 in there, we just keep turning the boost up. And we get the power eventually. But on pump gas, you sometimes get backed into a corner because you don't have the octane anymore. So when you don't have the octane, it gets hard to make power because you fight detonation constantly. And you need the coolest air possible going into the motor to make that power. And these little turbos pump some hot air, so that's where you start to get in that little, you get kind of in a corner. So that's why everything it's a lot trickier. That's why, like, my car makes over 500 on pump, and that's a very, very, very difficult thing to do on these cars. And we've had other videos. People have come, they've tried, and they've missed one component in the in the recipe and fell short. So like the recipe has to be money to get there. So me and Bader, we figured out that recipe a long time ago. You know, chef's recipe, you don't deviate from it.
Chef's recipe.
But yeah, so yeah, that's the black. Great turbo. Will say you do want built heads with it. You want cams. That turbo is not really great without cams because you got to rev it a little higher because it's a little more later in the power band the way it makes power. So if you have a stock cam, it hits its peak and then you're at the rev limiter. So you want to be able to stretch it out more and run like either a BC 272 or even a 280 is what you want to run on that turbo. So pretty much any of the turbos I talked about, they benefit from cams. So 400, if your goal is 400 max though, you don't have to. But if you do the cams, you're going to enjoy that power band so much more because you'll be able to keep going on it.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's not required.
Yeah, I got 272s in the toolbox.
There you go. If they're in the toolbox, throw them in. Put the springs and retainers on there and throw those cams in there, and you're just going to make more power easier. Everything you do to improve airflow just works with you when you get on the dyno. Things are just easier. You run less timing to make the power. You run less boost. Everything's happier. Like the more air you can efficiently flow through the engine, the better off you're going to be. The longer it's going to last. So, you know, we had that last car. I don't know if you guys remember the Stefan, the white one. It had 6466 everything except the intake manifold, and we hit a brick wall at like 670. Would not go past it. We turned the boost up 5 more pounds and it didn't make any more power. All we had to do is just change that off and it'll instantly pick up like 30, 40, 50 horsepower. So like you get to a point with some of these parts where you just, you know, they can only do so much. But 670 on stock manifold's pretty badass. I mean, that's the most I've ever made on one. So, but yeah, that turbo should do 700 though with the right manifold. So.
Bam. Now you know what to do.
Yep.
All right. It's in the books then.
You know, if your budget allows for a little bit of spending in some other places, it's always better to overbuild. I'll spend it if I need it. It's always better to overbuild for the future because maybe you make 400 today, and then later on you're like, you know, I really want to make more, and all I need to do now is put fuel pumps in. Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah.
So
that's how it was a week after.
Yep. Instead of being like, oh,
that's how you were a week after.
You know, instead of being like, oh, now I need cams, now I need a bigger turbo, now I need this. Then it's like, oh, it's so much money, screw it, I don't want to do it. That's what always happens with people. But if it's like, oh, I'm 2 fuel pumps away from making 100 more.
That's not much.
It's easy. Why not, right? So,
yeah.
Yep, that's the motto, guys. Always overbuild. You know me. I'm all about overbuilding on all my cars. So if you want 400, build it to handle 5. If you want 5, build it to handle 6. If you want 6, build it to handle 7. If you want 7, put all the money in it. Everything. Just everything you can do. Don't hold back.
Just dump everything.
Because 700 is like crazy on these cars. So.
Go broke or go home.
Yep. Pretty much. Just take your wallet.
Sounds like you're going
shove it in.
Yeah, exactly. Going broke.
All right. Well, we're gonna get this one on the dyno now. We're gonna talk about some of the changes he made to this car. His car was here a little while ago. Unfortunately, it doesn't have what I really hoped it had, which was the double pumper setup, because then we could have really made some numbers today. But we're still going to try to improve upon what we had. We had fuel pump issues last time, or fuel system issues somewhere. We weren't exactly sure where, but we just know we ran out of fuel. So hopefully today we can do some little adjustments here and there, and get some changes made. So what changes did you make to it?
Well, really, it's just a brand new hanger and a brand new fuel pump. So, I mean, that's it for now. Just a couple changes. I'm putting these spark plugs in it.
Okay.
What else? There was an exhaust leak, I discovered last time, and that's about it. Just basically a retune.
Okay.
I got the double pumper in the trunk. I'm still waiting on the fuel lines. Still waiting on ETS to ship my stuff. But
Yeah.
we'll see.
Well, you know, with COVID and the wildfires, people are doing the best they can. Our industry's been hit pretty hard with all the stuff this year. These parts are very hard to get now, if near impossible at this point, because warehouses are all depleted. So everything that was in the warehouses is sold and gone. Getting new stuff is very hard because the government's cracking down with COVID and all these rules. So, you know, it's not their fault. They're doing the best they can. So
Can't believe it.
we're lucky we could still get some of this stuff because it's getting bad. So, but yeah, let's get this thing on the dyno and see what we can get.
That's good. Gotta take that diffuser off.
Yep, diffuser comes off once again. So he's gonna prep it for the dyno, and then we'll get it on there. There we go. Hold on. got it readjusted. Everything looks really good. We definitely had to make some changes to the fuel system with the changes that he made to the car. So everything's looking really good. It made 371. It was up a little bit more than this because I was running it a little bit leaner on the first couple pulls, and you're always going to make more power when it's leaner. But this is a track car, and he does drive this on the track, so we definitely want to keep the pistons cool and keep it a little bit on the richer side. We sacrifice a little under 10 wheel horsepower, but the safety is definitely worth it. So now we're going to put the ethanol back in the car, and we're going to really see if we can get where we should have got last time. So we're definitely shooting for north of 400. So we're going to put the E85 in it, switch it over, and then we're going to see what she'll do.
Look, she's gonna do it. She's doing it.
Hmm.
Well, 450, there she is. Well, we picked up, what, 60 horse over last tune?
Over the last one. That's
Yeah, over 60 wheel.
pretty good.
So yeah, definitely whatever you did in the trunk definitely worked because we have just amount of fuel to make perfect. This is exactly what ID 1300s with that pump are capable of. But we are now officially maxed out.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah, we're at like 98% injector, and
No way.
we're right where we should be. Yeah, the graph is beautiful. Looks nice and smooth. Carries all the way out to 7,500, no problem.
Sounds good.
Yeah, it's
take
making 497 on a dyno jet, like 500. You're right there at that 500 though.
Cool.
So yeah, that's killer power. I'm much happier now with this.
Cool.
Last time, I wasn't very happy with how it left, and I really wanted you to get to feel what it really is.
Sounds good.
So this is at, I believe this was like 25 psi.
Oh, really?
It's not that bad. We still got a ton more boost we can run. If we had that radium and those injectors, we could just crank this thing up. We'd make another 100 on top of that.
really?
I bet. Oh yeah. You'd probably get to that 550 right in there.
It's those fuel lines, man.
Yeah. Yeah. So because of COVID and
Yeah.
wildfires and everything we've been going through in the Northwest here, his fuel lines, his special lines he needs are on back order, which is a bummer because he literally has the fuel system to make all the power sitting in the trunk, but he can't install it. So kind of that's a heart wrenching right there.
I know. In the fields, man.
Yeah, in the fields big time, but this is a lot of power though. You're gonna definitely be smiling on the way home with this. So you're definitely gonna get to have some fun in the meantime. So I'm really happy with it though.
Sounds good. Good to go. High five.
High five.
There you go.
Teamwork. All right, well, there's gonna be a video on his channel as well. You guys know who this is. Obviously this is JR
Short video.
from MYWRX channel. So go check out his channel. This car will be on there. He'll have his view of how today went, and it'll be a little bit different from his point of view. So go check that out. Subscribe. Make sure like and subscribe and hit the bell, right?
Yeah, that's right. Hit
The bell is where it's at, because then you know when our videos pop out. So we're done with this one. We got one more to do today, and then we're gonna call it a day. So we're gonna get this unstrapped. He's gonna go rip on it and have some fun and get some smiles per gallon on the way home.
SteveTuned and Vanderbilt.
Hey, look at that. Ready, shit right there. All right. Well, that makes me happy. So I'm really happy with it. So let's get on to the next one.